Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a podcast with your host, Miriam. It has been a long while since I last did a podcast, and some of that is due to having personal time to myself. But I felt it necessary to get back into the swing of things, as we say. Today's podcast has been one that I've been wanting to do for quite a while and kept putting off for various reasons. This is entitled The Empath and the Covert Narcissist, or you could say it the other way around. Many of us, when we've been in situations where we've started our lives again, start new chapters, perhaps maybe we're already in this type of relationship, perhaps we don't realise it, or we're just going along in our normal everyday routine and not really realising the titles and the labels. Subconsciously, perhaps we know that something's not right. And also sometimes because so many different factors impact on your relationship, finances, wealth, health and wealth and troubles in the world, education, normal routines in that different relationship, work-life patterns, travel, maybe someone has issues with their childhood, they've got their inner child work to do, or they have mental health issues. The categories go on. So what do I mean by an empath? Well, let's put this into what I understand, and I'm sure many of you can relate to. This is someone who is able to put themselves in another person's shoes, as we say. It's someone who can relate to issues. It's someone who can sympathise. It's someone who can really understand trauma or really understand the predicament that you're in or the situation that you're in. Sometimes they offer solutions. Sometimes they're able to offer genuine sympathy. They're able to give you a shoulder to cry on. They're able to give you a tissue. They're able to give you their time. They are someone that's understanding of what is happening to others. And that's because they've got that innateness about them, or sometimes they've learnt it through experience. They're just genuinely kind people. And also they're someone who basically has a heart. They have a conscience, you know. They know the difference between right and wrong. They will try to help others the best way that they can. And sometimes this can be a bit of an alarm bell when they tend to, shall I say, attract people that just want to be like them. And hence comes along the narcissist. Now, the narcissist I'm going to speak about today in this particular podcast is the covert narcissist. Because for an empath, sometimes, although you know something is not quite right, they will try everything they can to basically belittle and to take you down. So in my prior podcasts, I've talked about actual narcissists, but covert narcissists are on a whole different level. And I mean a whole different level. So they will suss you out, they will investigate, they will research, they will stalk you in a way. And when I say stalk you and suss you out, they are trying their best to look at what it is you're looking for, what it is that they can get from you by doing this as well. And often they're looking at different like jigsaw pieces in that particular equation to try and work out where they fit in, what they can absorb, what they can take. And the empath often will not be aware of this because, you know, they're grounded people. They take people at face value. They don't necessarily see the negativity in others. They might be aware of it. There might be a case of like they put barriers in place and they put restrictions in place, but they don't necessarily do anything in regards to saying, hey, that doesn't roll with me. They're good at putting barriers in, don't get me wrong. But the covert narcissist is exceptionally sly, very cunning, very manipulative. And initially, when they take on any form of relationship, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a work partnership, whether that's a loving, caring relationship, they will have different aspects of trying to get into that empath's life in various means and force. And, you know, initially, It's all smiles. It's all lovey-dovey. It's all balanced relationship. And only when they get to know the empath really, really well, over time, certain things start to crumble and fade away. Now, I recall situations where this has happened to me. And being an empath, the covert narcissist, initially when they have their first, I guess you can call it a ding-dong, an argument, fight, or something they're not happy with, because you've revealed that you're not going to tolerate some of their rubbish, shall we say. I'm not going to use strong words on this podcast today. I'm going to keep it PC. But they will try very, very hard to try to belittle, try to make you feel crap. They'll try to make you feel really bad. And it'll be over the most stupidest thing. And a lot of the time, their ego and their very low, and in particular extremely low self-esteem, doesn't allow them to actually see things for the way they are. Now, sometimes they have almost like a borderline personality disorder, almost like a Jekyll and Hyde, and they cannot allow other people to have happy feelings, to be in content, to have friends, to have a social gathering, to have, a bubbly lifestyle, and to be, inverted commas wise, normal. All of us have different balances. But the covert narcissist has cut themselves off so much that they've cut people out of their life, whether that's from people that they work with, people around them, their friends in their social circle, their family members. They'll have cut people off one by one. And a lot of the time they'll come up with excuses of, this person is toxic and this person has done this to me. And it's always that they're the victim, although they won't use that terminology, but they make themselves out as the victim. And they get sympathy for this from the empath, by the way. The empath will listen to the story. And if it's an empath that is innately alert and conscious of the words being used, that empath will be storing what this covert narcissist has said. And a lot of the time, there is untruths to what this person has said. There's a lot of exaggeration. And sometimes, and my belief is this, that if you tell a lie, sometimes that lie is very hard to keep up with. But if you tell the truth and you're telling the truth, then your facts are going to remain facts. There's no changing of that. It remains the same. With the covert narcissist, it's slightly different. When they argue with you, when they have fights with you, everything gets twisted. Everything gets manipulated. Everything is almost like backfired in a mirror and thrown back in your face. And their argument and their fight is basically based on nothing. It's their displeasure that you have basically put boundaries in, or you have said something they don't agree with. For example, it could be something simple as they've had a haircut. And you've said, your hair looks really lovely. Oh, so my hair didn't look like that before. Are you saying I looked ugly? You said that they did it, and it carries on. And it's an escalation of issues that you've not even said. You've made a different sentiment. You made a different statement. But the covert narcissist will use that particular word or phrase that you've said and use it as ammunition against you, and will use it as a fight. And I mean a big fight. So they're very good at playing victim, as I said. They're very good at blaming and being toxic. And in those initial stages, sometimes we don't often see it as an empath, because we think, we make excuses. For example, that person could be having a bad day. It could be their inner child issues. It could be the mental health issues they've got. It could be their medical background, their medical reasons as to why they're kicking off and they're having a meltdown. There's so many different factors. Someone else would have said, go away, don't want to hear about it. An empath isn't like that. An empath is like a sponge. And we seem to absorb this toxicity. Sometimes it does affect us and it does drain us. And other times we stand back and put barriers in place and we're like, what the hell? And obviously we might use strong words in that occasion. But, sometimes we stand back, we let that person rant. And it's interesting when the covert narcissist does rant, because they disclose quite a lot of personal issues and quite a lot of insecurities and quite a lot of pain and torment, and basically they're disclosing in an underlying way that they're not happy with themselves. As an empath, we're natural healers. We're natural people that want to help, not fix. Help and heal is the words that I would say. Because when you're trying to fix someone, it suggests you're going to keep being broken. Whereas if you heal, you're healing it long term. See the difference? But not everybody is willing to heal. Some people do want a quick fix. Some people do want to be beside that empath because they know the empath has worked on their issues. They've worked through their pain. They've worked through their trauma. And they really have come out the other side. And that covert narcissist will try everything they can to make digs, to make, accusations. And I remember the first time this occurred to me, and I just stood back. And this person wanted an apology from me repeatedly, because when I apologized and said, look, for whatever I've said, if you, in your narrative, in your perspective, have viewed it as that I've insulted you, I apologize. That was not my intention. This is what I meant, but you've misconstrued it the other way. Now, a covert narcissist is very smart, but also, sorry to say, dumb. I don't normally like using that word, but in this occasion, I think it fits quite well. So they will try very hard to trap you almost in this cattle fest of the cowboy and the cattle, with the rope, trying to sort of lure you in. Ooh, I've got them to apologize to me. This is now a power dynamic, and I'm making the empath grovel. I'm making the empath feel sympathy for me. Well, actually, it's not sympathy. Sometimes the empath has said the statement just to shut the other person up, just to end the argument, just to end the situation, because it's abhorrent. The covert narcissist's abuse continues and continues and continues to the point where they will on purpose do things, say things, when they know that the empath has specific key factors, key events, key things happening. It could be a birthday. You might be going to a concert. You might be out with friends. You might be having a really good time socializing. You might be, I don't know, you've got some important event happening, and it's your time. And they feel that they're entitled to it. They feel that they're entitled to basically demoralize you and to basically stoop you down to their level, because they're not happy in themselves. You are. You'll have days when you're upset as an empath, of course, but you're able to work on that. You're able to heal yourself from that. The covert narcissist can't. No matter how many times they keep applying plaster after plaster after plaster on their wounds, each time they've taken it off, it's almost like it's gone gangrene and it's started again. They will never really truly heal because they can't. Until they get to the underlying core of their issues, they can't. The empath, on the other hand, stands back, puts these, boundaries in place, and tries very hard to be understanding, tries to be sympathetic, tries to be relatable, tries to be someone that wants that person to heal and work on themselves. Again, like I said, not fix. They want them to heal. They will show empathy towards that individual. They understand all these different various concoctions and reasons as to why they've kicked off. It doesn't make them a punching bag, though. And that's something that the empath will try very hard to put into place, because that empath will only have so many limits to their own temperament. We can be extremely patient, but it gets to a point where we can snap at the other individual. And we also have to protect our own mental health for our own sake, because the covert narcissist will try very hard to keep taking advantage of that. One of the big reasons that they keep taking advantage is because they have done this repeatedly with many, many other individuals. And with the empath, because they're like that sponge, as I said previously, they will absorb a lot of this toxicity. Sometimes because they've got good, healthy boundaries in place and they've learned from prior experience, the empath will not tolerate some of this crap. They will put boundaries in place and they will say to that individual, don't use me as a punching bag. If these are some of the things that are factoring you or impacting on you, then I suggest that this is the way you deal with it, whatever the predicament is. And they have to have that talk about their behavior. They have to have that talk about, these are the things that roll with me and these are the things that won't. Now, you'd think that the covert narcissist would listen to some of that helpful advice, but they don't. They know that they will say whatever they need to say to appease the empath. And often when they've had their little tantrum, the empath has stood back. Some people in the initial stages don't do that. They keep absorbing it and absorbing it and absorbing it as a sponge. And obviously it has an impact on their mental health overall, And that's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. So there are times when, if you've been with someone, you're in a relationship with them, maybe it's a friendship, you've been with them for a long time, we're talking over 6 months and so, you will do your best to, put yourself in that person's shoes. You'll put your boundaries in place. And when that person has their little episode, and I'm going to call it episode because it's almost like a meltdown with a child having a tantrum in the middle of a shop, you stand back and you let them do what they need to do, and again, you reciprocate the same situation you did with the healthy boundaries. Now, in some cases, that boundary works until the situation arises again. In my own experience, I've discovered that sometimes with that particular personal relationship, when you put the boundaries in place, it takes a while to rejig the boundaries, to get them working in harmony with the other individual. And sometimes I've had to step back. And that stepping back means not responding, and in the world we're in now, when I say not responding, I'm talking about 2023 as we're going into 2024. It's very, very hard because the digital and social world we're in, you have individuals now on so many different social media platforms. You might be on TikTok together, Snapchat together, you might be on Instagram together, Facebook, you might be on LinkedIn. There's so many different social platforms that are out there. So you're connected in many, many ways. And, the narcissist, the covert narcissist is almost like a sociopath. They notice that, for example, when you're withdrawing your energy, when you're withdrawing and backing off, not only you're not saying anything through a text message or a WhatsApp message or Viber, whatever, as in, hey, how was your day sort of thing, if that's been your regular routine. But you're also not looking at, and you're not choosing to have a look at what they're doing on social media because perhaps you, as an empath, have distanced yourself. You've stepped back. And it's not because you're having a tantrum. It's not because you're sulking with them. It's not because, you're treating them like a child and vice versa. No, you're just taking a step back because you need that social moral compass and you need to reclaim your own energy. Now, that's how the empath views it. The narcissist, the covert narcissist, will see that you're playing a game, that you're having a tantrum, that, oh, you didn't check my stories, oh, you didn't do this, oh, you don't care. And along comes the drama and melodrama and almost like a saga, to the point where the covert narcissist is like this drama queen, because they're not getting the attention. It's a baby throwing the dummy out. And it's hard when you're an empath to put boundaries in place. It's hard to restart that relationship again from whatever boundaries, because that covert narcissist has done everything they can to belittle you, to dehumanize, and basically has said quite a lot of hurtful and nasty things. Now, yourself, there's things we all tolerate and won't tolerate in relationships. And it makes it even harder when that person's your, personal relationship that you're having with them, an intimate one. Whether it's your husband, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the scenario is, your fiance, whatever the predicament is, it's very, very hard to walk away. So there are times when we have that space, we put the boundaries in, and we stand back. And sometimes it might be that you as an empath has to be the one that reaches out to them. eventually when you feel that it's the right time and to get in touch and say, hey, you ready to talk about what you did? And again, it's reminding you of like a child, isn't it? The child has like a tantrum. You're the one trying to put things back into perspective. You're trying to reevaluate what's happened. And as an empath, you're also trying to say, look, this is where you went wrong with your behavior. I take on board what I did as well. You didn't like the fact that I stood back. You didn't like the fact that I didn't respond to your messages, or I didn't look at your social media, whatever the situation is. But that covert narcissist also needs to understand that you are protecting yourself. You are protecting your heart. You're protecting your mental health. You're protecting your sanity, because it's very, very draining. An open narcissist, as we've talked about before, they're like an open book. But a covert narcissist is something else, believe me. They, in fact, leave you more drained in the end than the actual narcissist. I think the covert narcissist, personally, for me, from my own experience, is more sly and more damaging than we take on board and then we realise. Over time, we put boundaries in place. We try to help this covert narcissist. And sometimes we don't realise, when we're an empath, we don't realise how much impact they're actually having on our mental health, till the point where we get to, we're drained. My own situation with this, I didn't even realise, my hair was falling out. My hair went very thin. And my body was reacting to stress. It could be work-related, it could be life-related, but I knew it was also impact of this person also around me and in my life. And I noticed like my weight would increase, it would plummet, my hair was thinning. You're noticing acne, or if you didn't have acne, and the list goes on. You're suffering from stress levels. Maybe you can't sleep, maybe you're sleeping too much. You start to lose things, you're getting forgetful. The list goes on. And it's because you're not in charge of your proper senses. Your focus is distracted and your focus is lost, because that covert narcissist has had such an impact that you feel like times you're not in balance of yourself, you're not in balance of you, and you're not in balance of your hormones. And obviously their mind games has an impact, an overall impact. And sometimes you get to a stage where you will tolerate this for a long period of time. I've known some people, when I've talked to them and we've had counselling sessions, that, some people stay with that narcissist, as I've said in my prior podcast. They've stayed with them for 20, 30 years. Some have stayed with them even longer. And some can't even stay with them for the length that they are trying to stay. And that relationship breaks down. It breaks down easier. Nowadays, it's easier for people to walk away. There's less people getting married, for example. And some people are in different types of relationships. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not easy for them to walk away. Sometimes children are involved, as I've said in prior podcasts, or certain situations are involved. It could be living situations are involved and so on. So it's not always easy to walk away. But the covert narcissist will ensure that they've entangled you in various situations, to make it appear as if there is some future for the two of you. They know, like I said before, they've studied you, they've looked at what you need, they look at what you're after, and they try to present that early on in that relationship or friendship. And it's only later, as time has developed, and some of these patterns that you've tried to disperse, you've tried to break, you've tried to address, you notice that actually they're getting worse. And this person clearly needs mental health help from a practitioner. And you're not that person. As an empath, they want you to help them and you can't. They have to do that work themselves. And often they will ignore the fact that they've got huge, huge mental health issues. There are some people out there that are like sociopaths. There are some that are like borderline personality disorders. And there are some that are just wreaking havoc on innocent people and turning their lives upside down. And the empath that's struggling with this, or the person that's with them is struggling with this, a lot of the time, they don't want to share what's happening. Sometimes they're dismissing it, they're not acknowledging it. I'm guilty of this. Sometimes you're making up different excuses for them. Like I said, mental health, it could be medical reasons. It could be that you know that they're struggling from childhood trauma and so on. And, you know, you've still decided to enter this friendship or relationship with them. And you're being kind, you know, with them. And they're not seeing it like that. And they will still continue to use you like a punching bag for their rage. And like I said, a lot of the time is because these situations happen because you're not doing what they want. You're not complying. You're not doing commands. It might be that you're out with friends. And it might be that you took longer to respond to their text message or phone call. You ignored their phone call or you couldn't take it because you're out with friends. And then when you're able to have, for example, time to respond to this narcissistic person, they're then too busy, inverted commas, to spend time with you. Or they ignore your phone call or whatever because they're sulking. And it's a power dynamic to them because they're like, oh, you were too busy for me, so I'm not too busy for you. And it's a very childish game, very childish game. And then along comes another fight. So the covert narcissist knows exactly what they're doing, And over time, they will keep belittling you. They'll keep trying to find fault with your friends, find fault with your loved ones, find fault with people around you because they don't want you spending time with people that are your soul tribe, your family. Family can be anyone from friends to people that you've met and you have connections with them. And when you're spending that quality time with them, you're not spending it with the covert narcissist. And they don't like that. They really don't like that. They want you all to yourself. They want to strip you of any personality. They want that attention. They want, and I'm talking about, you know, constant phone calls every day. It could be like that type of relationship. It could be that they just want you at home at a set time. When you finish work, you shouldn't be going anywhere else. You should be at home. There's extreme cases like that. Where you're going, you might have to tell them. You might have to share your location. It can be extreme like that. And it gets to a point where the empath seriously cannot cope with this anymore. You know, they've had enough. They did not sign up for this. They did not agree to this. This was not in the terms and conditions of the invisible contract that they signed when they went into a personal relationship with you. The covert narcissist will presume that they have those rights on you. They'll presume that they can control you. They presume that they can continue to belittle and continue to put conditions on you. And also, they are very sly, manipulating, planning events, planning things, and in often cases, planning events with other people, but not actually informing you as a partner or a friend. And therefore, having double standards, big time. You know, and if you did the same thing as their partner, oh my God, hell would break loose. So the narcissist or the covert narcissist will try very hard to do very sly things to ensure that you are theirs and their property. They can do what they want to you, or so they think. And as an empath, it's not easy to put boundaries, as I said, back in place. So what do you do when it gets to the point where you feel that relationship as an empath, is over? You know, the covert narcissist, let me tell you something, repeatedly will try to belittle, will try to say many times, and this is, you know, to sort of knock your self-esteem and to make you feel like you need to have them, will constantly say, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to end this relationship. I'm going to do this. And it's always I. And it's coming from a place of power and control. Not, I think we should. break up. I think we should work on this. It's because you've not complied to their demands and you've not complied to their control. And clearly you are thinking for yourself as an empath. Clearly you are wanting to not be in this toxic situation, because 90% of the time your relationship might have been happy. Maybe it was 50%, maybe it was 40%. As time goes on, though, it gets less. The happiness is less. And a lot of the time you are trying to appease that person as an empath. You really are. You're trying to bow down and you're trying to do things, and you're on that fight and flight mode and attack mode. You keep sensing something's going to happen. So some of the times you know it's best not to do this particular thing because that person's going to react. It's best to comply because that person's going to react. Yeah? It could be something simple like the food you've got in your house. It could be where you've gone for a meal, where you've met. And a lot of the time you'll do it because you don't want that huge volcano erupting in your face, because the aftermath is just mental. It's crazy. It's draining. So as an empath, you will try to appease, you'll try to communicate, but at the back of your mind, you know something's not right. And there are times when, the covert narcissist has sent horrible, as I said before, horrible messages about them leaving you and breaking up with you. And a lot of the time they're exhibiting that so-called control and power. And what they don't realize is the empath's already thought about this. The empath has many times said to them, well, why are you staying with me in this relationship? If I'm so horrible, if I'm so toxic, why are you here? And sometimes that covert narcissist cannot answer. They can't. They're saying, I'm not happy with this situation. Something's got to give, something's got to change. And the empath's thinking, yeah, you need to change. You are the one that has to stop this mental abuse, because it's horrible. And they will take back their power slowly but surely, And it gets to a point where either the narcissist will leave or the empath will leave. And a lot of the time it's the empath that will walk. And the covert narcissists keep expecting them to come back. And the sad truth is they're not. They're done. Once an empath is done, they're done. They've already packed their bags. They've already packed the, mentally or physically. They've packed their suitcase. They were out of that relationship and out that door a long while back. They just needed it to, sizzle out, I guess. They needed, for all actions to come pointing to one particular way. And that's the door with the exit sign on it. And there's no coming back. And the funny thing is that the covert narcissist still won't accept that ending, because they see it as a failure. This is a person who's got away from me, and I can't let that happen. And their narrative to others, about whether this friendship or relationship has ended, will be on their terms. Oh, yeah, this person was toxic. Oh, yeah, you didn't see what this person did. So what they do is they do the reverse coin, and they flip everything. And you, the empath, are the bad guy. You, the empath, are the toxic one. You, the empath, are the reason that relationship broke down. You, the empath, are the narcissist. I'm not laughing to think it's funny, but this is what they do. They label it backwards. You, the narcissist, will not stand in your truth because they don't know what truth is. Truth is a lie to them. Everything is blurred. It's blurred vision. The empath, will be shocked and hurt by some of these labels and some of these accusations. And as long as they stand in their truth and in their power, they know what's what. They know the actual truth. They know that they're none of these things. But it's the covert narcissist trying to belittle and to attack because they know they've lost. They've lost that person. They've lost the feeding, I guess, of light and wisdom and joy that person was giving them. And, the empath at this point is feeling extremely drained. And they have no choice but to move forward and to heal and to recuperate from this very, very tumultuous relationship that's drained them. And, they need to go work on themselves. The covert narcissist won't be. The covert narcissist will have already selected another victim or victims. and everything, and as I said before, everything is the other individual's fault. And what's sad, really sad, is that the covert narcissist at this point has switched off from so many friends. They had friends, and because the friends wouldn't comply, maybe they couldn't meet them for a particular lunch date or something like that. Maybe they said something that didn't agree with. Whatever, they have cut off those friendships because of their toxic traits. So now not only are they left with no partnership, no friendships, nothing, and they're in their own comfort zone. Now, many people are okay. Not all of us. Some of us are okay with being on by ourselves in our own space, keeping ourselves occupied. But actually, deep down, that covert narcissist can't cope with that. They'll pretend, they'll put on a facade that, oh, I'm fine, I know better than anyone. They're not actually. They're not okay within themselves. They're not happy with their own company. It's complete misery. The empath, on the other hand, no. They've gone through their stuff, They've worked through their insecurities. They've worked through their drama. They've worked through their meltdowns. They've worked through their abuse and toxic traits. And it takes a long time to be okay with their own company, And the covert narcissist will try little digs. When you were in that stage where you're trying to end the relationship or friendship, whatever the scenario was, you'll have said, look, I'll be blocking you. I will on the different platforms. I don't want communication with you at all. And that person will also repeat it back and say, I'm the one that's blocking you. Well, actually, the empath will get in there quicker before the covert narcissist, which is another thing that angers them, And this is where it gets into like blurred line, because the covert narcissist now is furious. The empath is drained. The empath is in like warrior mode, but drained. Their battle armor needs replacing. They need to recuperate. They need to rest. They need to stand back. And I think also it's an awakening, because I personally felt this when I had looked back over some messages that I'd blocked the person, and I was like, whoa, I put up with a hell of a lot of abuse. And why did I do that? Some of it I've blanked from, even from memory. But early on, somebody could say to me, that was a red flag, Miriam. That was a red flag that you tolerated. Yes, it was. And whether it was the blur vision of love and compassion to that person's mental health and abuse that allowed them to speak to me like that. Obviously, I put boundaries in, but you can see it clearly. What the hell? And that's your huge empath side. That's what I'm saying. The empath is like a huge sponge. You will absorb things that you shouldn't really absorb. You'll put in layers and you'll put in whatever. And this time of recuperation is a very, very important one. And as empaths, you'll feel absolutely drained when you walk away from that situation. You'll feel like you've been in a boxing ring and you've been knocked out physically. And you know that you need to recover, you need to recuperate. And sometimes it's a case of just doing physically nothing. Even getting into the shower is a challenge. You feel drained. Getting dressed feels like a challenge. It's not stooping into depression. It's your physical body saying to you, enough. Stop. Switch off from everything. Switch off from... And if we're in the luxury where we can do that, that's brilliant, because I know people have to work. People have to put bread and butter on the table. We have our families, we have our children. We have different commitments, and it's not always easy to just stop. But sometimes we do. And it can be a challenge just getting up in the morning, getting dressed, eating something. This is where your soul tribe comes in. Sometimes an empath will just not speak to anybody, or they will allow a couple of people into their life, or they just don't say anything to anybody at all, and they just go into almost like a hibernation mode and recover. And they need that time. They need that time to shred away what this relationship was. They need time to grieve. They need time to heal. They need time to mourn. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. The covert narcissist, on the other hand, will not take any accountability for anything. The empath, will try to get them to be reasonable. So, for example, if you've been living together or had a friendship in some form, maybe you want them to come and collect their belongings or do the decent thing and, put the cards on the table and have that serious adult conversation. They will avoid that. And it might be like, throw my things away. I don't want them. And then later claiming victim. They'll make it as difficult as they can not to have to face the consequences of what they've done. But also, what's so weird is at the same time when they've allegedly blocked you from, like I said, nowadays we've got so many different social platforms, they still have the cheek to then spy on you. Whether that's through friends or through people that you've known in contact with both of you, they'll do everything. The empath, on the other hand, is gone cold turkey. They will have also blocked you for their own mental health and well-being. Sometimes they've done it quickly. Sometimes it's taken them time to purge. The covert narcissist does it as a game. They do it as a power dynamic, power control. Let me block them because that's showing me power. Let me block them because I don't want them in my life. The empath's not even thinking like that. The empath, when they're ready to block this individual from whatever social platforms or media devices, they're doing it for their mental health because they don't want that barrage of abuse. They don't want this tyranny of obscenities coming through. And they also don't want you telling the truth. So the empath will have a different way of looking at things. The empath will be protecting themselves, protecting their energy. And if they do block you, it's for various other reasons like that. And it's interesting, these two dynamics, because as it unfolds, the empath in the long run, when they've gone through their healing and they've gone through their prognosis, whether that's ending up talking to close friends, going to a counsellor, having some help, or just taking a step back and just being kind to themselves and allowing themselves to heal from this toxic, relationship. And they have to grieve. They have to grieve for this person that they loved, that they were fond of, this person that they thought they were growing with, not growing apart. They will need that time to heal and to recover and to then eventually close that chapter, and call that relationship what it was, that lesson, and that cycle comes to an end. And they know that. They know they're going to come back to themselves wiser, stronger, more compassionate, but also more alert. The covert narcissist, on the other hand, has already moved on to several other victims and has done behind the empath's back. And that just shows you that they cannot be on their own. They have to have some form of supply, almost like sucking the life force, sucking the life energy out of them. So it's interesting where these two dynamics are. And I think more of us in our world, just to summarize and to conclude, because I'm sure we're going to come back to this topic another time, we have to understand what our role is in this particular situation. Are you someone that is the covert narcissist, doesn't realize it? Are you the empath? Are you, which role is it that you're playing? Or is it someone that you're aware of that's in this particular predicament and they don't really know, maybe they're trapped in a loop? You have to break it. You have to break it. And often it's the empath that walks away. The covert narcissist will try and play the games so that they're in control, but it's actually the empath that walks away. And it's a victorious walk. It's not an easy one. It's painful leaving a loved one, but you're doing it because you love yourself more. You're doing it because you know it's the right thing to do for you, your mental health, and for your own physical well-being and mental well-being. That relationship isn't serving you anymore. It's not on the same page. If anything, it's draining. And the covert narcissist, because they don't really have a conscious, they pretend to have a conscious, they will never understand that. They really will not understand that. And we have to look at this and we have to address this, and we have to realise what that relationship taught us. As I said, the covert narcissist will never see the value of that lesson. They will just think, oh yeah, that person was another toxic person and they were abusing me. Everything you've done for them is twisted. Twisted, believe me. But the duality and the reality are two different things. The empath, if that's you, that's definitely me, and you can recognise yourself in this situation, be kind to yourself. Let yourself heal. Let yourself really fully heal, and let yourself be honest in your truth. Let yourself speak what you need to speak to that person before you say goodbye and before you walk away. And if there are other people impacted, tell them your truth, because people that lie, narcissists quite clearly tell a lot of lies and they get themselves tangled up in it. Lies take quite a lot to concept and to conceptualize and put together and to remember. Whereas if you're telling the truth, it's always staying the same and you can't budge from it. Wherever you are on your journey, whether you're the covert narcissist or whether you're the empath, for the empath, definitely I have a lot more patience and understanding. With the covert narcissist, I hope some of you that are out there go and seek help and go and get some, psychiatric care, because clearly you need to break your patterns and clearly you need some actual real help, because you can't keep doing this to other people and yourself. You need therapy. Whether you realize it or not, you do. And I hope each one of us, whichever life path we're on, realizes that, and that we're able to help others, because that's what we're here for. We're here for different soul lessons, and we're here to help mankind. And we're not here to cause more trauma, and we're not here to cause more drama. But there is a lot of toxic people out there, sadly, that are doing that. This has been a really interesting topic, and it's good to be back. And I'm sure that I'm going to keep back up with the channel. And thank you for tuning in. And that's all for now. Good luck on your mental health journey, folks. Bye for now. This has been Miriam at Raise Your Vibes.